banner is back to front. I haven't quite figured that one out yet, but you're here. Anyway, listen, I just wanted to welcome everyone, first of all, to the Latte Lounge. I'm delighted to introduce you to our latest guest in our series of Menopause Awareness Month speakers, the lovely Jane Lewis. Hi, Jane.
Hi, thank you for inviting me, Katie.
Oh, it's lovely to have you. Now, Jane is an old friend of the Latte Lounge. Jane spoke at an event we had for our 3rd birthday last year. We've done some Facebook Lives together, and she always manages to make me blush and embarrass me whenever we talk about her book. Usually, well, we were in Westminster together with Diane Danzy-Brink last year, and there were lots of MPs walking around listening to our conversation. So anyway, but it was good to educate them.
It is, yes.
So look, Jane, I wanted to chat to you today, and I wondered if we could, before we talk about your lovely book, which I'm just going to show everyone, for those of you who don't know, Jane is the author of this book, Me and My Menopausal Vagina. And before we talk about the book and why you wrote it and the contents, can you just start off telling everyone?
You're breaking up, Katie.
Oh, can you not hear me?
Yeah, I didn't get all of that. It's breaking up. It's did you ask me to explain my journey?
Yes, please. Yes.
Yeah, okay. So I'm 54 now, and I started my so-called perimenopause 45, but officially for vaginal problems I now realize it was actually nearer 40, and I didn't have a hot flush or any of those things, but I just started getting vaginal dryness, and that term is not anywhere near what vaginal dryness can be. It's an umbrella term for many. I don't know if this is working, Katie.
Yeah, we can hear you, but I don't know if it's your.
Oh, you can hear me. Okay.
Yeah, but carry on.
Okay. So it's an umbrella term, yeah, for vaginal dryness, which is an umbrella term for so many different symptoms, you know, painful sex, soreness, itching, burning, splitting, episiotomy scars, repeat UTIs, going to the toilet numerous times a night. And I realized that no one was talking about it really. It's just given a slightly brushed off back then, and I got very, very down. I became really suicidal. I found Diane Danzy-Brink and had some counselling with her. And then from there on, I decided that someone needed to start talking about this because it is really very common. And then I wrote the book with my daughter. And 2 years on, there are so many women that are suffering and are now actually discussing it publicly. I can see 2 years on that there is a huge difference in how vaginal dryness is being discussed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's one of those. I mean, talking about the menopause is a taboo subject, or has been, but to actually talk so openly about something so personal, so painful. I mean, hats off to you, Jane, because you know most people that come to your Facebook group and to my Facebook group and Diane's, you know, they come because these are sort of closed groups of women only, because they're scared to even mention what's going on to their own doctors because they think it's just happening to them. And you know, we know that it's not, and I think it's really good to sort of talk about this subject because you don't feel so alone. And so tell us a little bit about the book. I'm looking through the chapters of the book, and it starts off with who am I? Talk us through each chapter and what women can find in it, and what help.
Yeah, so I haven't looked at the book. I haven't looked at the book for 2 years, and people keep saying to me, "Oh, I've read so and so. I have to go back and remember." So yeah, I just needed to say, you know, who I am and why am I doing this? Because putting my head above the parapet, I was very nervous of the potential consequences, knowing that I was talking really intimately. But I can honestly say I've had no trouble. I've had no trolling on social media. Which I find quite astounding because of the subject matter I'm, you know, doing. And obviously I had to discuss it with my daughter. So I've got 3 daughters, I've got a husband, I've got son-in-laws, I've got a granddaughter, and all the repercussions of discussing something so openly. And they have all been absolutely amazing. So that's where we started with who am I and why was I really discussing something so intimate, because I'm actually quite a doesn't seem like it. I'm quite a quiet person, really. I'm a very private person, yet I've discussed one of the most intimate things that there are to discuss. And then who am I? And then we talk about the vagina in the book, because so many women don't actually realize they have a vulva externally. So we went discussing all the different parts of the vulva and vagina area, because vaginal dryness, women just think it's painful sex, and it's only what affects you inside. It actually affects you externally as well. The vulva area is very often, a painful area. So we discuss the anatomy, and although this book is so-called for a menopausal woman, it's actually for your late teens onwards, to educate young women and girls. I can't really see you, Katie. Are we still going fine?
Oh, yes, absolutely fine. You're just a little bit fuzzy, but I don't know if it's your Wi-Fi or mine, but we're fine. I can hear you.
We're fine. Okay. And then you interrupt me when you need to, because I'm just looking at myself, really. We have...
Yeah, carry on. That's fine.
Yes, yeah. And then we discuss what vaginal atrophy is, and I've actually got a poster here to show people, if they can see it, of all the different symptoms here, and these have all been checked by Dr. Louise Newson. So more than a bit of vaginal dryness, it has all these knock-on effects. There's 13 different symptoms of vaginal dryness, and women don't realize that a lot of their itching, or that bit of soreness, or that bit of burning, or I can't wear my skinny jeans anymore, or I can't sit down comfortably, potentially are part of vaginal dryness. And it's very important that you also get checked out, because they're also symptoms of other vulvar skin conditions as well. So then we went through the whole body in the anatomy, and then the different treatments available. And this is where it's a bit like with your father and breast cancer. Everyone fears estrogen, because vagina, vulva and bladder love estrogen. And there are treatments available that are non-hormonal, like your lubrications, etc., etc. But it's really the vagina loves estrogen, and so does the bladder, the pelvic floor, everywhere.
So what did you find helped you in terms of treatment options?
So I started off, because I was 45 when it officially got really bad. I was still very much having my periods, perimenopause, and the doctors were saying it can't be vaginal dryness because you're too young and you're having your periods, because it's a postmenopausal older lady condition. And I've got nearly 5,000 ladies in my group, and we are 50-50 perimenopause, under 45, under 50s, and then the postmenopause. So I went on a bit of a roundabout trying to get the right treatment. But for me, I need a lot. I need vaginal moisturizer internally. I need an external oil-based moisturizer twice a day externally for the vulva area. I use localized estrogen in the vagina. I have a localized cream estrogen externally. I also am on HRT, because roughly 25% of women need HRT and localized estrogen for their vaginal dryness. And I did have laser treatment as a last part of my toolkit.
And did that help you?
Yeah, so the laser treatment, I'm definitely not here to promote it, because there are those that it is not for, and there are those it can really help. I know quite a few have had it, some it's made worse, some completely better, and many like me, it's part of the toolkit and has helped a lot. Because my main problems aren't actually in the vagina, mine's externally on the vulva. And what happens, the vulva area can become very thin and very paper-like. And I had 3 9-pound babies. I've got 3, good, quite big episiotomy scars, and they were at the point of just starting to tear and rip because the skin had become very thin. So I'd researched laser treatment for 3 years, was very nervous about having it done, but it has helped the quality of the skin externally. We know what laser treatment can do with burns and scars, etc. So externally, it's really helped the quality of my perineum and those scars. And it's also then helped the estrogen cream work better because the skin is a better quality.
And in your book, you talk a lot about the physical and the mental well-being, and how this, you know, has affected you. You know, I know we talk a lot to women on our group and some of the IGTV lives I've done myself about how all these horrible perimenopause and menopause symptoms have an effect on our moods. You know, mine was low mood and depression, sort of being very self-conscious, and you become very antisocial. For you, this must have really had a massive effect on you. Just talk us through a little bit about how it affected you physically and mentally.
Yeah, mentally, it was, when you have, I mean, menopause can cause mental health problems regardless of whether you have vaginal dryness or not. And I think menopause, as in mental health and the vaginal problems, are the two most taboos, I think, of the whole area, the ones that, those two are the hardest to talk about. And when you have vaginal vulvar pain like I had, and very many like me, I'm not rare in my group, I'm quite common, mental health issues come hand in hand, I think, because you can't really go and tell someone that your vulva and your vagina, and you can't sit down and you're in pain. And I did actually get to suicidal point, and I don't say that lightly, I really was. My husband had to hide the pills in the house that I was given, amitriptyline, I was given hidden, and my daughter, I remembered, was half. Let me come
I think you're cutting off a bit, Jane. Your Wi-Fi.
Oh gosh, I've never had this problem before, Katie.
That's better. It's come back. Carry on. Yeah.
Yeah. So my daughter kept me on the phone for an hour and a half. I didn't, because she was coming home from London. I thought she was just chatting, but she's keeping me on the phone because she's very worried that I may not be here the next day. Because I got so desperate. And then one day I remember ringing up my sister-in-law, who had no idea of my vaginal problems. And I rang her up one day and said, you need to come and sit with me now. And she came and sat on the bed with me for a good hour, which is why, you know, it's part of the reason, I obviously then went to see Diane, but it's part of the reason I'm so passionate about talking about vagina and vulval problems, because it's the mental health side as well. And, you know, I'm still not, I've got nerve damage as well. So I've always got some pain in the vulva area. I have nerve damage on top. And it is really hard. It can really bring you down because it's changed. I was a horse rider, you know, and that is a community. That is a lifestyle. I was out for 5, 6, 7 hours every day with my horse, the smell, everything about them. And I can never sit on a horse again. So my life has had to change and adapt. Like many people, I'm not, you know, I'm not unique.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, we're talking about Diane, but many people may or may not know, Diane Danzibrink is a menopause counsellor who Jane went to see, and Diane writes for our website and supports women herself with her menopause support group. And I think one of the things we all always talk about is to talk. So to, you know, if you're not sure how to approach your doctor, or if you think these symptoms are having horrendous, you know, impact on your life, don't stay silent. Go to your GPs or go to any of our Facebook groups or websites and really inform yourself so that you can then feel stronger and empowered to ask your GPs for support. And there's lots of menopause specialists out there as well. You know, sadly, we all know that a lot of HCPs don't have menopause training, so are not actually giving us the advice we need. How did this affect your relationship with your husband? Obviously, it must have been incredibly painful to have intimate relationships. How did you address that issue?
So my husband from day one has been absolutely amazing. I was never made to feel that I had to be intimate. And we all know that you could be intimate without having penetrative sex. But yes, there came a point when sex was no longer possible. It was simply too painful. And he said he wouldn't want to have penetrative sex with me, knowing it was hurting me, because it wouldn't give him any enjoyment either. So the key thing is that you have to talk, because many women in my group, suddenly they can't have sex because it's too painful, but they don't tell their husband why. So the husband thinks they've gone off them or something like that. So the key is communication. And unfortunately, and I hate saying this, but quite often women do get better care if they take their partner with them to the doctor.
Yeah.
For their intimate care health. Because once you mention the word, I can no longer have sex, it changes the whole thing. It shouldn't do, but it does.
Yeah. And I think a lot of women are just, whether it's the community or part of, a lot of women are very embarrassed to, first of all, even talk about it or complain, but especially when it comes to something as personal as sex. And I think, I feel terribly sorry for the men, because all they want is to understand what's going on, and they often think it's something they've done. So, I mean, great advice to actually take your partners with you. Diane's actually written a blog for our website about explaining menopause for men. I really recommend all the women who are watching to get your husbands or partners to read that.
Yes.
How have your friends, I mean, you say your friends and family have supported you, but how important is that to you? You mentioned there's a whole chapter actually on friends and family in your book. How has that helped you through what you've been going through?
Yeah, well, some friends did go by the wayside, simply because the condition, I stopped being part of a community of basically horse riders, and that a lot of that stopped. But I've got friends from 30 odd years that I have been absolutely amazing, because I didn't actually tell any of my close friends that I had written this book. I didn't want it to force it on people. I didn't want people to find to buy it, and they just found it by chance, and they have been very, very supportive of me and the book. And you'll be surprised how many people are actually suffering, and that you didn't realize that we're suffering, that are. And also my daughters in a different age group, because people know about the book, they've got friends in their 30s going to them who themselves have pain with sex. It's not just this age group.
I mean, how amazing to you. So you wrote this book with, was it your older daughter?
My middle daughter,
your middle
Penny.
daughter, Penny. Okay.
Yeah.
And there's the thing I love about the book is there's so much humor in it. It's not a boring, very sort of heavy medicalized book. It's funny. It's got your personality and stamp on it. The illustrations are fantastic. So, and actually, I'm just looking through. I actually want to just show a couple of images. I don't know if people. It's a serious topic, but it's easy to read, and it doesn't embarrass you, and you really feel like you're not alone reading it. What would your there's a question here from a lady which I'm going to read in a minute, but what would I always ask people when we have these conversations, if you're watching this and suffering like you have, less or more, what would your message be to them?
Firstly, we have got to stop self-treating, because so many women have these problems, and only roughly 7 to 10% go to the doctor, and we are self-treating for that constant thrush that we think we have, and very often we do not. So stop self-treating. We know it's a big problem, simply because of all the products that are for sale in the shops, and we know that now there's been a really good YouTube video done recently by 2 top Italian doctors. They called it the silent epidemic, this problem, with a good 80% of women suffering, but only 7 or 10% are going to their GP. And when you examine your breast every month, you must examine your vulva as well, your external area, because that itch or that soreness could potentially be something else. And it's the only area that we seem to treat and put medications and lotions and potions on without actually looking at. And if you're not happy with the diagnosis from your GP, ask to be referred. And we just have to start talking. If 5 women can tell 5 women, and men as well, because it affects the men in a different, if we can all tell 5 people who tell 5 people, it becomes hugely less of a taboo.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not here to push products by any means at all, and I know you're not either, but there are so many products in shops, and I think when you're growing up, you sort of say, oh mum, I'm sore, and they say, oh, we'll go and get some Canesten, and I've had members say, oh, I've got thrush, and it's like a red light to me. I immediately email them saying, well, have you, or do you think you have? Actually, you should actually, you're no longer in your 20s. Go and speak to your doctor.
Yeah, vulva dermatology talk now, and they have to be treating for thrush unless we have a positive swab from it. We're all self-treating. it's nowhere near as common as we all think it is. We all think every itch or bit of discharge is thrush, when often it is not. And yeah, we just got to stop for thrush, because the ingredients within they often make you feel better or less irritated, because the ingredients other skin condition. No, it doesn't mean say you've had thrush at all. It just means that with some of the ingredients within that thrush cream may have temporarily helped you.
Yeah. And we must explain, I know we've talked about local estrogen, but having a tiny amount of local estrogen is the equivalent of a year's supply of HRT. So it's absolutely minuscule. And really, just everyone, you know, if you're suffering, obviously, I really recommend reading Jane's book, because it'll answer a lot of your questions. But go informed to your doctors. Don't be embarrassed or scared to talk about it. I've got one question. Excuse me for leaning in, but it's so small, I'm going to have to read it out loud. So it says, I'm currently taking a preventative antibiotic following, can't even read that. I've started to suffer with urinary tract infections. What should I do? I think UTIs are very common, aren't they, Jane?
They are really, really common. If you're getting on the roundabout, the merry-go-round of giving backwards and forwards to your GP, backwards and forwards, you're having 3 days of antibiotics going on and on. As I said, the bladder area and the urethra are very estrogen dependent also. As that area dries out, we are then more prone to UTIs. So yes, you may be getting UTIs. However, there's a very high chance at our ages that it's being caused due to lack of estrogen, and using localized estrogen can really help.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, thank you so much for joining me. I'm sorry if the Wi-Fi connection was either my end or your end, but I think most people heard it all. But
yes.
Thank you so much, Jane. And I think you're doing amazing, amazing work. And
Katie, thank you very much.
Pleasure. Take care. Bye.
All right. Okay. Bye-bye. Bye.